Hello, hello, my friends in Sasquatch Land. Hello, 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 my friends in Sasquatch Land, and welcome to another Tuesday night at Discover Sasquatch. Welcome, one and all, and once again, we will not disappoint. We have another great guest backstage at the moment, Mr. Appalachian Bigfoot Explorer himself, Mr. Eric Tipton, is with us tonight, and this is going to be a great show. I did a show with him a little while back on Spencer's channel, Woodwalkers. You guys are all familiar with that. If you're not, you should be. Go on and check that out. And I got a chance to talk to Eric on the side about things, and he knows a ton of stuff about Sasquatch. And then we started comparing notes about where it has led him and where it has led me, and it was just such a great conversation. So had to get him on the program, and I am very excited to have him here tonight, and I'm sure you guys will learn a lot from him, as I do every time I listen to an interview that he does. Before we get started, I got to tell you, we got to do the drawing again. The winner of the Scott Carpenter book and mug never claimed the prize. So I'm going to shake the cup, and I'm going to draw another winner of the autographed copy of Scott Carpenter's The Awareness Project. Right here. Oh, what the heck is that? Something's attached to it. Right here, and you win this mug. And so let's get this started so we can get Eric out here. Shake, shake, shake. Everybody sees me shaking. There's a stuff in here. See him? All the paper in there, so you don't think it's rigged. There it is. I'm going to dig in. You can hear me here. Listen. Shuffling, 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 and here it comes. Watch. Here it comes, the name right here. And the new winner of the mug and the autographed copy is Camping with Sasquatch. Camping with Sasquatch. So I will leave a note on the page, on the comment section for Camping with Sasquatch. And congratulations, you have won the prize. And if he doesn't or she doesn't claim the prize, we will do it again on the next interview. I will be shutting down for the month of August. I'm getting ready for the trip with Doug Highcheck up to Snell Grove Lake, so we won't have an episode until the end of August. So I just wanted to let you guys know this is probably the last one I do, unless I feel next week I could squeeze one in, but I got packing to do, and we got lots to get to. So that's all I got. Listen to me babble. Let's bring our guest out for the evening. Again, we're very excited to have him here, Mr. Appalachian Bigfoot Explorer, Eric Tipton. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Everybody has a different reaction to the applause every time. It's funny. Welcome to Discover Sasquatch, and thank you for joining us tonight.
My pleasure, brother. My pleasure.
I'm looking very forward to this. I mean, there's a lot of people here already. The chat's flowing. This is going to be a great show. So as we get started here, you've been doing this, I believe, for like 12, 13 years. Am I correct around that time?
Yeah. Yep.
Let's start at the beginning. I mean, I guess that's where every interview starts. Why don't you just let everybody know a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in Bigfoot to start off with?
Sure. Born and raised here in Ohio. And I worked construction my whole life. My skilled trade is mechanical, HVAC. But there was a time where I worked for a grain handling company. And, well, if I go back to childhood, I've always believed. I've always had and it's the classic, In Search Of, and watching that, that whole thing. But at the end of it, I didn't move through the whole episode. And at the end of it, I remember turning to my dad, and the classic dad in his recliner. And I just remember looking at him, and he looked at me and said, "Son, let me tell you something." He said, "There's things on this planet that was here long before man, and they'll be here long after." And that always stuck in my head. So then fast forward through life, and I'm working for a grain handling company. And I would go around and I would service grain dryers on farms. During crop season, those grain dryers have to run 24/7. So it was nothing for me to show up on a farm at 3 o'clock in the morning and service a grain dryer. This particular time, we were way up in northeastern Ohio, and we were at a seminar. On our we chose to drive back a day early, a night early. And once again, it was your classic back road, 2-lane road, middle of the night. I'm in the passenger seat, in the back seat, and I got my head up against the window, and I'm kind of looking at the ditch line in front of the car. And we have our high beams on. And I just, a big bush, big shrub, whatever is in the ditch we're coming at it. And the closer we get, this thing starts taking shape. And then I realized that once we start getting up on top of this thing, that it's not a tree, it's not a bush, that this thing is alive, it's real. And as we're now we're right up on top of it, this thing is squatting, and I'm looking at the left side of it, and it's looking at us. And as we drive by, I do the through the window, and then it goes to darkness. And I turn around, and when I turn around, the guy driving is literally, he's rubbernecking. And he's and he looks at me, and all he said was, "I don't know." And that was it. But to be honest with you, there was no mistaking what it was. I mean, like I said, we were right up on top of it. I saw it with high beams on. It might as well have been high noon with no clouds in the sky. But I kind of just, I locked it away, and the only person I told was my dad. And he told me, he was like, "Son, I believe you." He said, what you say, I believe. He said, "But you're the one that's got to deal with it." Bottom line. So I just locked it away, because back then it was scrutiny. It was you got pounded on. You mentioned Bigfoot and you got throat stomped, So years later, now I'm with this company, and this is where I meet Kane, who has also been my research partner. And we start carpooling. We do this on large projects. If it's a year or so project, you'll start carpooling. And here, he and I are on this project for over a year. So through that course of time, you talk, you get to know each other, you become friends. And through all that time, we found that we had the same likes and interests and this and that. And finally, I just decided I'm going to tell him what I saw. And I was ready for the, all the jokes and the puns and all that. I told him. He kind of sat there for a second as he's driving. And he just looks over at me and goes, "Well, let's go find the son of a bitch." All right. And that's kind of what started everything. And we've been running ever since. And So, and then through our research, we pounded and pounded, and we wanted to do it. We wanted to do it. I hate to say it, but our way. We wanted to make mistakes our way. We didn't want to be. We didn't want to have the chatter in the ear. No, do it like this. No, do it like that. No, that's not what you do. And da da da. We didn't want that. We wanted to find the answers and make mistakes on our own. So we were hidden. We hid ourselves from this platform for a very, very long time. When we started our research, and it wasn't until really after my sighting in 16, what I call my true sighting in 16, is when we kind of really started reaching out and talking to different people and finding people on Facebook and other platforms. But until then, yeah, we were out there just running the gauntlet ourselves. I learned topos years ago. I studied terrain years ago, and my background of coming up and hunting and trapping, that's always been a passion of mine. So yeah, we would just drive around and we'd find a ridge, on a back road, and we'd jump out, check the compass, and boom, we'd take off into the woods. And then, yeah, it wasn't until after my sighting that we really, that's when we kind of started reaching out to people and talking to people.
Well, growing up being fascinated by the subject, did you think that you would ever see one? Really,
No.
You'd cross your mind, or it just happened?
No, it just happened, because even growing up, I mean, where I grew up on the west side of Columbus, I grew up on the outskirts of, I was in a suburb way out on the west side of Columbus, and so I had the woods, right behind my house. And back then, kids, you would come home from school on a Friday and you'd bust out the door, and you wouldn't be seen until Sunday afternoon, sometimes from your parents. And so I grew up in the woods, and it was never, even seeing the shows and this and that, even being out there by myself as a kid, camping out in the woods, I never imagined, ever running into one or seeing one, or possibility of ever seeing one. It never crossed my mind.
So when you told Kane about your experience, did he have an experience of his own, or he was just intrigued and wanted to support you and wanted to get out in the forest and go find it?
He was intrigued by it. As soon as I told him, he was like all in immediately. But he had something happen to him as a kid out in the woods where he grew up, on the north side of Columbus. He had, him and a friend of his had something happen. They can't explain it. A sound that they got while camping in the woods. But even then, he didn't. Not until later in life did he kind of relate it to, possibly being, the subject at hand. So yeah, but as soon as I told him, he was all in for it.
So you refer to as your sighting. So you don't count the first one as a sighting. You count, what do you count? Do you count that as like a pass byer, or what would you?
Yeah,
it as?
Yeah, because I knew what it was. I knew what it was, but it was quick, And even though I know what it is, I know what I saw. It wasn't like what I had in 16.
Okay, so let's go to 16 and tell everybody about the sighting that's got you going full steam now.
That day was different from any other. Usually we'll park, get out, check our gear, and we'll go. This particular weekend, I had my wife with me and his girlfriend at the time, and we were staying at the campground. So they drove us and dropped us off, and we hiked in. throughout this whole day, and we have recordings and all kinds of jazz and documentation. We had all kinds of interaction throughout that whole day. We did our thing. We went back and started right back up where we left the weekend before with our research. And coming out, we knew that we were being paralleled from top of the ridge. We knew it was there with us. This day, though, instead of dropping down and dropping out, jumping in the truck and leaving, we dropped down, we hit the gravel road, and we walked the gravel road to a bridge. Now, to paint this picture, you have the whole ridge, 2 ridges that we research. And then when you drop down off that ridge, this gravel road dead ends. Well, it dead ends into a massive, massive marsh. And there's a channel that runs inside this marsh. So we walked the gravel road, though, to the bridge that the channel goes under, and it goes out into the marsh. And the ridges that we research is to the right of me. Well, we're sitting there. Well, I'm standing there. Mike is on the guardrail facing me. His back is to the marsh, and we're waiting on the girls to come pick us up. We've got our gear stripped down. We're hanging out. We're just talking about the day and everything that we had captured. And I'm looking down at him, and as we're talking, I just glance up. And when I glance up, I see this arm pushing this branch out from on over top of him from this tree, and he pushes it up, and he steps out, and he steps up, and we just lock eyes. And he flares, and he literally comes up, and he flares back, his head goes back, his eyes went wide, and he just froze. And I froze. Kane is talking this whole time, and I'm froze. I'm froze solid. And I'm in meltdown process in my mind. I've got absolutely nothing. I'm just there in the moment. It turns. Its head stays straight. His body turns. He goes to step. His head turns, and he drops down into the channel. At this point, I take off running down the road. I want to get another vantage point of him, so I'm running. I can hear Kane behind me. I can hear him grabbing gear. All he knows is we're running. He has no clue what just took place. All he knows is we're running. And I can hear him grabbing gear behind me. And when I stop and I step into the marsh, I'm 6'1", and when I step into the marsh, the weeds in the marsh are up to my chest. And what I'd seen of him was from the waist up. So and I've said this many, many times. I've told people this many times. I just went through a meltdown. My mind was going 1,000 miles an hour. The only way I can really describe it is almost comparable to when I was saved, prior to me being saved. It was like having every emotion that a human has and balling it up as tight as an atom and then letting it explode. And I tell people, I could have stood there and laughed. I could have dropped to the ground and balled up and cried like a baby. That's how much emotion was running through me, and adrenaline was running through me. But it was everything. It was everything it was from what I'd seen all those years ago. It was everything that Kane and I have done up to that point, and then seeing it. And it was like validation. It was just, so I gather myself, and Kane had to straighten me out. He had to ground me, and so we get back to the bridge, and he's like, I'm going out there. I'm going to go out there. You grab the rangefinder. I'll go out there. He gets out there. I can't even see him, which Kane's like 5'2". I joke, but he's not. But he's short. I couldn't even see him. He had to hold up a stick, and finally I get him to where he's at, and from the stick I ranged him at close to 100 yards, and Kane goes silent for a few seconds, and I'm just kind of standing there, and he just hollers. He's like, "Oh my God, you got to get out here." So I make my way to him, and where I told Kane it turned and took a step, there was his print in the mud. And so we casted it. It's hanging around the corner there on my wall. Then I start going and I start retracing the day of knowing that it was paralleling us above the ridge. What it had done was it had dropped down when we followed the road to the bridge. It lost line of sight of us. It dropped down, crossed the gravel road into the marsh, and then made its way through the marsh, thinking that we're gone. Because it had a look on its face when we locked eyes. It had a look like, oh crap. There was no aggression from it. There was absolutely nothing like that. He literally had, like, I just screwed up. When his eyes went wide, and he just had this look like, damn, So I started thinking, I was like, I need to find his track. I need to find his trackway in this marsh. And bigger than crap, man. It took me a little bit, but I got on it, and there was his steps, and every other step was my cast, and laid perfect in his impressions all the way back to the road.
So you talked about you guys started a trial and error, but obviously when you guys were doing trial and error, this led you to this situation. You were onto them. Do you want to share some of the tactics that you guys tried and failed at and succeeded at to get to this point, to get to this sighting this day?
Oh yeah, it was. Oh my God, how much time did we have? Mainly for me, I needed to know what I was tracking. First and foremost, coming from that background, I needed to know what I was tracking, and it wasn't like I could pick up a phone and call somebody. So I needed to be able to identify. So the first thing I did is I dove into any large game known animal here in my state. Now we do have rogue black bear here. I dove into bear prints. I dove into cat and dog. I dove into all kinds of stuff. I dove into human prints. I dove into, the pigeon toed, the duck, the outside walk stance that some people have, the outside, curve walk that some people. I dove into prints deep. And then just my tracking alone and learning from two old heads, and learning how vegetation moves during certain light, during moon phase, during with moisture on the ground and dew on the ground, and the rising sun and the setting sun and everything. I dove into all of that, and that took me a very, very, very long time to figure out print wise what I was looking for. Everybody has, well, I can't say everybody, I shouldn't say everybody. A lot of people have this patty print, wide, tall, thick, and that's a Bigfoot. No, they range. Yeah, exactly. And they range. I mean, they run the gauntlet on size and variation of everything. So once I learned that, that was big for me. Then I could identify what a track looked like. And then it went into travel pattern. We needed to learn their travel pattern. How do they travel? We don't know. So we started studying what we believed to be trackway, a certain trackway in this area that we were researching. And now at this time, we're only doing it on the weekends. We've got jobs, so it's every weekend we're out there pounding the woods. So you're only hitting certain spots, and you come back and you start where you left off. Well, we did. Now all of this that I'm telling you took 3 years, every bit of 3 years to get to this point. But then we realized their travel pattern was in a counterclockwise circular, and it would take them roughly a month, just over a month, to get back to our research area. Would take them about a month to get back. Now this was after establishing the trackway, learning that it's in a counterclock motion, and then setting out audio in different parts of the trackway, and hours upon hours of just listening to this audio, waiting to capture something, an abnormal sound, something. Once we caught that, we knew, okay, here we are. Now we got time and date. So once we had all of that, now we got all that, we can track them. We can identify a trackway. We can identify travel pattern, and we can establish time and date. How do we get them on film? And we've ran the gauntlet on anything and everything that you could think of with trail cams. I mean, we have dug and buried them into the ground. I've taken the styrofoam green boxes from the home section of Walmart, and I've hollowed them out, stuck the trail cam in it, put moss over top of it, burrowed them in like briar and brush, and taking pieces of bark that match it like a tree, that same style tree, and then hooking a piece of fishing line to it and draping it over and running it to another tree about 8 foot up in the air and making a tripwire for it. And this piece of bark is hanging in front of the trail cam. So when they trip it, it drops, boom, you got a picture. We have come back to have the area totally destroyed. The bark is down, huge X in front of where the trail cam is, and the trail cam is stomped to death on the ground 10 feet away with absolutely no pictures. We have run the gauntlet when it comes to things. With all that said, now where we are many years later, they say stealth cam. You go out, you buy a black IR, and they call it stealth cam. It's not. Take a stealth cam, set it out there, take an IR, any IR that you have, and turn it on and look through it, and you can see that trail cam. You can see that light. It looks like a flashlight. To any nocturnal animal, it looks like what we see when we turn a flashlight on in the middle of the night in the woods. That's exactly what they see with IR. We know nocturnal animals can see this. We figure that Sasquatch can do the same thing. We don't know this, but we assume they are nocturnal and they can see IR. So now what we're doing is we're looking at how do we actually make a trail cam stealth. And so now I've got 3 or 4 trail cams that are dismembered right now behind me, of trying to figure out ways to truly make it a stealth camera, and get that flash without pixelating and getting a complete whiteout. And so there's all kinds of stuff that we're doing. Everything is trial and error. What I have learned, I go back to what works. And I know what works is establishing a trackway, establishing travel pattern, establishing time and date, getting in ahead of them, positioning yourself off the trackway ahead of them, and go completely dark and wait. And you're going to wait 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. You don't move. I did this last year. Last year, I went back to this area. I have not been, and this was our research area for many years. We have not been back there for a very, very long time. I went back there a few times. I reestablished everything. Kane and I went in at night. We went completely dark. Here it comes. It's coming down the ridge line right where I said it would. It's on its trackway, and all my gear goes haywire. Goes completely nuts. I lose everything. Everything worked flawlessly. Just prior to nightfall, just prior to the sun going down, every piece of gear I had was flawless. Up to the point of it standing 30 feet in front of me. And I had absolutely nothing. Knowing that I've got a bipedal standing in front of me in pitch black in the woods, and at this point, all I can do is light it up. Light the whole area up. I've got nothing. I'm dead in the water. I light the area up. There's absolutely nothing standing in front of me. Nothing. Kane has got a very expensive night vision. Very expensive night vision. Nothing. He comes up on me. He's 20 yards down off my right shoulder. I light up the area. He comes up to me. We're talking. We go back through his camera. He's got absolutely nothing. I walk up to where this thing stopped. Right there's its impressions in the ground. I turn. I track it all the way up to where I first started hearing him coming. I track him back all the way to that point. I turn around. I follow his tracks back to where he stopped. And that is it. There is no exit. This thing did not exit anywhere. Why?
Whoops, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. And that's where I am now.
Before that point, what did you think the Sasquatch were? What were their behaviors? Were they creatures of habit? Were they predictable? Were they stealthy? Were they easy to find? What was your thoughts on the Sasquatch before this point in time?
Once I learned, very stealthy, extremely stealthy. If not, we would have pictures of them. We'd have them in a zoo. If not, extremely stealthy. Once I learned those three things, it was easier. They are habit. They are creatures of habit. They do things. They do things out of what I consider to be boredom when they travel. I've told people this many times. Don't look up. I mean, we're talking anything from my height as a teen. What I would put a teen of them, a teenager, at my height and up bigger. So look at that range of height. And when you're tracking, look at certain things. When you're finding broken twigs off branches at 8 foot up in the air, just things that wind wouldn't break, even a branch falling wouldn't break. They're too thin. They're live. They don't snap. And you find these little snaps. You'll find where they'll grab a little tiny branch and they'll pull it, and they'll pull the leaves off of it. Have you ever taken like your hand and grabbed a branch with leaves and pull it, and all the leaves come up and it looks like a flower in your hand? I've found that on trackways. They do these things, and I believe it's just boredom. It's just traveling. It's when they're walking, they just do it out of habit. Certain things like that I have found that they do. Once you learn these things, they do become somewhat predictable. But with that said, they will change everything in a blink of an eye. In a heartbeat, they will change. We know this for a fact because it happened to us. We had certain individuals that were following us around, trying to figure out where we were at, trying to figure out what we were doing, and they finally caught up to us, and they went into the area, and they destroyed it. They completely destroyed it. They took things down. They added things. They did certain things, and we lost them. They changed their whole pattern. They changed their whole routine. and it took us a very long time to get that back. So they do change. Seasons, being up here in the north, we go through all 4 seasons. Their patterns do change. They what? They found us, man. They're shutting us down.
Yeah, there's that.
But seasons, they change elevation. Certain seasons they'll change elevation. They won't necessarily leave the area, but their elevation will change. Things like that we have found and documented, throughout time. So yeah, once you learn certain things, they are extremely stealthy. They are extremely cautious in everything that they do, but they do have habits that they do. But they're very curious creatures. Not all of them. I can't speak for all of them. Don't think that you're going to sit down and pick daisies with them. I've said this many times too. At the end of the day, they're a creature. They're an animal, and they're in that aspect, they're completely unpredictable. We have had aggression shown, but we've always known when to walk away. So, which is very important. I don't stress. I can't stress that enough to people that trust your gut, and when it's time to go, it's time to go.
Do you think trust is a big part of Sasquatch research? Establishing trust, especially when you start figuring out the patterns. I mean, I had a gifting area for 6 years, and I found out a lot of the same things that you have found, the patterns. When they're there, when they're not there, what they like to do, the games they play, the stones, when they throw the stones at you. It was a ton of stuff that could be learned once you find those patterns, just like you were talking about. Do you think trust plays a game, and do you think that they will lead you once they start to trust? They'll start to play the games with you. Not a game, I guess, but interact more with you.
Yeah, and we have found this through the years. We would go in so far, we would either get rock toss, we'd get some sort of low vocal something, and that's as far as we'd go. We'd do a little bit of research, we'd leave. Not each time, but through time, we would go a little farther, and they would allow us to come in a little farther, and we did that. We did that game right there for a very, very, very long time, to the point to where then we were right there with them, to where we were getting glimpses, we were getting visuals. They were glimpses. They were quick movements, to where before we wouldn't even we couldn't even get them to do that, but then it got to the point to where we knew where they would be on a ridge line, and we knew how to give our body language. We understood that as well, how to show body language to them, not to move abrupt, not to do certain things quick, not to act on a sound at all, to dismiss, or just ignore. We knew how to manipulate, I guess, in a way, to where then they started kind of giving us glimpses in certain movements that they were doing. And what really turned us was the day that we got triangulated. We had all 3 sides. We had behind us and the ridges to the right and left of us. And they came in on us. And this part here, I don't honestly know, because we'd never had any type of major aggression from them. We had gotten the deep gruntle growl of, no, that it's time to leave. That's not playful. It's time to go. We had that a few times. This particular time, they moved in on us, and they were to, like I said, the left and right of us and behind us. and just the tree bashing, all this we have on audio, and just the tree bashings that were going on were just ungodly, and they were pushing us. They were moving us. Every time that we would move, they would come in closer, and they would, like, the one on the right would push forward farther, the one on the left would stay back a bit, the one behind us would move in, and then vice versa. The one on the right would do something, the one on the left would do another thing, and the one on the behind us would kind of fall back a little more. It was very strategic of how they were doing this. Every time that we would move, we would still get the knocks, but they would lighten up. They wouldn't be as aggressive. When I say aggressive, I mean you could hear the wood splintering off of the other tree when it was hit. When it was, whatever it was that they were holding and hitting against the tree, you could hear it splintering. And it got to a point to where now we're in an area where there's just thick brush in front of us. And it's either we go straight into this brush and we lose line of sight, or we drop down into the gully and then try to make our way back up the other side of the ridge where one is. And I told Kane, we're standing there, and I have this footage somewhere in my archives, and I will dig it out. I will find it, and I'll send it to you. We're standing there, and I'm talking to Kane, and I believe you hear me on the video, on the video, sorry. I tell him I'm not going into the thickets. I am not. I am not going to lose line of sight. And I'm telling him, the only option we have is to drop down. Well, why I'm talking is the loudest bang I've ever heard. And you see Kane jump. I mean, it got us both. So we decide to drop down. Well, as we make a left to drop down in that thicket, in that thick brush, we get this low growl that just vibrates your chest. It wasn't like abrupt, loud boom, but it was low, it was steady, and it was long. And it just, your chest literally just vibrated as we were turning to drop down. And that's one thing that he and I both, we don't know what the intent was in that particular time, that moment. We play that over in our heads over and over, and we don't know. We don't know what their intent was for that. And then also, so we learned a lot. We learned a lot with that, with the way that they strategically move themselves. And then the following spring, foliage is up, everything is up. We've got two on us, and and now these two are just doing the games. They're little tosses and whoop, whoop, the little whoops and little things. And so we're on the side of this ridge, and I tell Kane, I'm like, let's drop down this thick shit. Let's just drop down in here and just squat. So we do. We drop down and we squat. Everything goes silent. They stop moving, and I don't know, a half an hour goes by. Then all of a sudden you can hear them, and they're chattering back and forth to each other. And you can hear them moving back and forth and back and forth. They lost us. They had no visual anymore. They had no clue. They knew we were there, but they didn't know where we were. And it was driving them crazy. And they were doing things, not aggressive, but they were doing things to try to get us to move so they could hone back in on us. And so we learned a lot with that as well. You can go stealth on these things. You can hide yourself from these creatures as well, as they can hide themselves from you. And it drove them nuts. It drove them absolutely crazy. And I found it hilarious. I did. I thanked him when we left. I turned around as we were walking out. I was like, "Gotcha!" Ha ha. But we learned so much. And then that's when we really that's when we really made a hard left and we started looking at structures, and started studying structures. And I went down the Mother Nature rabbit hole. I studied wind. I studied Mother Nature itself in different seasons of what it can do to foliage and vegetation and trees, everything. I looked at everything. I looked at wind. I looked at how wind travels over ridges and how it pushes and where it comes from, east, west, north. I looked at everything. I dove heavy into Mother Nature. And being a hunter, an avid hunter, I looked at human manipulation as well. What do hunters do? What do guys do when they go out? How far into an avid hunter? I'm not going over 100 yards. I'm not dragging a deer 100 yards. Not in this terrain, Blinds. I've made blinds. I've grabbed branches and put branches, in front of me. But elaborate structures and what we contribute to being Sasquatch, we're not doing those things. Especially this far in. People are not going this far into places and building these certain structures and just to build them. It's just not happening, So that's when I dove into Mother Nature and what Mother Nature can do. Last year, I will say this. Last year, I'm in my deer stand. I watched an X be created by wind right in front of me. I watched two branches come out of two separate trees, land stuck in the ground. The one falls over and leans on a tree. The other one, about 5 seconds later, falls, hits right beside it, and leans right across it. And I'm sitting there in my tree stand, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. So I had to make sure, though, prior to that, even seeing that last year, I had to be able to identify Mother Nature and then natural Mother Nature and then human manipulation of people going in. When I say human manipulation, I look at everything. I look at tracks, obviously. I look at where we're at, how far in we are, how far away we are from any campground, any hiking trails. I look at everything. But that's when we really started digging into structures. And taking the time to do our diligence with everything. Measure everything. Measure every stick. Measure the base of every stick in a structure. Measure the length. Measure from one base of a stick, say it's a teepee type structure. Measure the distance between the base of this one and the base of that one, the base of the, and cross and everything. Measure everything. Circular measurements, everything. Do it as much as you possibly can. Take as many pictures.
Common sticks and common places, common structures. They like to use those little bridges over their teepees. The ones that go across and are weaved in and stuff like that. So you guys have gone to the extent. I mean, you did your due diligence. You learned about the structures. You can track these guys now. You know their patterns. You know how to trick them. You know how to play with them. You know when to walk away from them. And then, boom, one disappears in front of your face. Does any of this that you have just done all these years prior prepare you for this moment?
No. Honestly, Chris, no. It didn't. Because I wasn't there. I literally was not there in my head. They were flesh and blood. Bottom line. They don't morph. They don't cloak. I was not there in my head. Toying around with it a little bit, maybe this, maybe that, a little bit, yes. But I was a flesh and blood, and it was at that defining moment last year when it happened is when because there was nothing else. I had no way to talk myself.
Uh-oh. Getting us again. Eric here froze up pretty good. I'm going to try and remove you, bring you back. Hold on. No. Eric, if you can hear me, you might have to log off and log back in. If you hear me, I'm going to text you. Hold on, guys. I'm sorry about this. We both have thunderstorms in our areas tonight, so this might be a problem right now.
We there?
There he is. Now he's back. Yeah, we got sabotaged.
Wow. Yeah. That was just quick.
Yeah, it froze up pretty good, but cool. You're back.
So, yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Oh, that's all right. It's all good.
It's amazing that
I got storms here. You got storms there. There's probably something going on like that.
Yeah, but the Taliban can get service in a cave and we can't get it here. I don't know. I don't get it. So, but that was it. That was the moment that I just, because I had no way of saying it was something other than, like I said, there was no exit. There was nothing leading out of it just simply disappeared. It was gone. And that was the defining moment, and I was like, there's more. There's more to this, and I need to figure out what it is. And then I started shifting through the stories, because there's many stories out there. Some stories are but which is very hard to do. You got to sift through all of that, and I started reading a lot. I started reading, going back to ancient and even mythology and just all kinds of stuff, and just to try to get a starting point for me of what I may be looking for. I don't know what it is. There's an energy. Now I've witnessed energy. I've felt energy. I've had things happen to me out there that I can't explain. Prior to it happening, I've had what I consider to be some sort of interaction from a Sasquatch, or just prior or just after having some sort of energy, something happen, and then having an interaction just after. So it opened a lot. It opened a lot up for me, and now I'm kind of closing a chapter, of where I've been and everything that's led me up to this point, and now I'm on this. I'm starting this, and it's fueled a new fire in me to figure out. Now, since then, I've been out in this area. I took my tree climber with me, and I went to that exact tree that I was hunkered up against that night, and I went up in my tree climber, and I had my EMF detector with me, and I had my night vision, and I'm sitting there, very quiet night, nothing's happening, nothing. I actually pass out for maybe about 10 minutes. I fall asleep. I wake up to my EMF detector pegged. I don't know how long it was like that. I have no clue, but it was pegged. No sounds, no nothing. It was quiet. And then I watched it, drop off. And I was like, okay, checked my night vision. I scanned the area and nothing. Like, okay, so I'm hanging out a little longer. I fall back to sleep for a couple minutes. I'm old. It happens. I wake back up, and the height that I am in my tree climber, where I am in the tree, I am at eye level to the top of the ridge in front of me. And I wake back up, once again, my EMF is pegged. Now, I did the whole, making sure the gear wasn't, because some batteries and gear do make, EMFs kind of go haywire a little bit. I checked all of that. I had my night vision was in my lap. I had my EMF hooked to the front of my tree climber. So it was a good distance away. It didn't cause any interference to it. And but it's pegged again. So I'm like, okay, well, I just start looking around, and right at the top of the ridge line, right in front of me, is this green line, a light. And distance-wise, how long it is, I couldn't really tell you. It took a minute for me, because at first I thought it was fog or something. But then it quickly clicked in my head, I'm in pitch dark. I couldn't see fog if I wanted to see mist or fog. I can't see this in front of me. But I see this green light, this thin green light right on top of the ridge, right in front of me. And my EMF is pegged. My EMF drops off, and this thing just dissipates. Just doesn't like fade. It just goes to, and that was it. But there was I felt nothing. I felt no type of energy in me. I felt there was, like I said, it was a very quiet night. And that was it. So for me, that was the base. That was the foundation. That was the foundation that I was looking for to now start building on, trying to figure stuff out. And so that particular area is one area that I am going to start studying quite a bit. But it's just odd that this is the area that I've done so much research in for so many years. I've had sightings, I've had glimpses, I've had all this stuff happen, and now this.
So do you think they're teaching you a lesson, and they're showing you now, they've trusted you all these years and you haven't shown any harm, they're bringing you to the next level? They're actually,
I think so.
You think that's what's going on?
And it's funny you say that, because Kane and I just talked about this a couple days ago. We literally had this conversation just a couple days ago.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I kid you not.
That's how it happened. It's all in the quantum loop. It's all out there, and it's weird how everybody gets entangled in it. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh no, you're fine. And we just had this conversation, and he's like, "Do you think it's now's our time? Do you think now is our time? That we have done this. We've shown complete respect. We have given them, what they have asked of us, as in distance and showing respect and earning that trust. We have given all that to them, everything that they have given to us, and now here we are. Now's are they now trying to talk to us? Are they now trying to communicate to us? Is that the level we're at now? And I don't know, because I'm at the bottom, but I believe so. I believe that it's them saying pretty much, these guys are ready. These guys are ready. Whether or not I am, I don't know. Well, I don't know if I'm ready. I hope I am. So we'll see.
Yeah, believe me, I wasn't ready for half the stuff that's just happened to me. We'll have to talk again on another Saturday afternoon, because I've had some pretty strange stuff go down. We're going to open up the questions here very, very quickly. I just got one more question for Eric before we do that. When you left the Flesh and Blooders, when you decided that there was something different about these guys, there was something special about these guys, it just wasn't. I agree, they're flesh and blood. They're here. They eat. They walk. I agree with that 100%, and I agree Now I know that there's something else. How did your friends take it? How did the people that were tight with you, the both, and followed you guys all the time, how did they take you saying that there's something different going on?
Some were very open. Some were, I hope, were very honest. Some were non-acceptable of it, but I respect that, and they know I respect them, and they respect myself, and they respect Kane, and they may say, "Man, I'm just not there," and I am completely 100% good with that. I am, but they respect what Kane and I are doing. They respect us, and they will back us 100% in everything that we're doing now, moving forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, respect is huge. I mean, it doesn't happen to everybody, and I believe, like we just talked about, that you guys are ready. They trust you, and I believe if once they trust you to that point, they're going to take you to the next level. And I hope you're ready for it, because it gets very, very strange. I mean, have you ever experienced? One more question, guys. I'm sorry. I'm the host, so I get to talk one more time. Have you ever experienced any kind of telepathy?
I don't know, Chris. I don't know. Misty and I just kind of touched base a little bit on this, and man, I don't know. I've had. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I. The reason I'm hesitant is because I don't know enough about it. Research. I'm one of those guys where if something happens to me, I have to figure out as much as I can first about it, and then start rationalizing it and kind of putting things together. But I've had where I'll just say it. I've had where I've been deep involved in tracking. I'm on it. I'm moving forward. It's there. It's minutes in front of me, and I'm in it, and then all of a sudden I will get something in my head very quick, and I can't make sense of it, and then it's gone. But it always stops me. Both times it's happened to me, it has stopped me in my tracks. It has stopped me. And at that point, I'm like, no. And actually, one of the times, and I didn't tell Kane this until later, one of the times I bullshitted him just so I could turn around and go the other way. And it was something that I heard. I'll just say it. I heard, but I can't make sense of it. And I told Kane I lost it. I lost the track. And it wasn't until, months later that I told him what had happened. And he's like, dude, do you realize where we were at? Do you realize what, and I just wasn't, but I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for it. So.
Well, they test you, and when you're ready for it, you're ready for it, and then they came. So I applaud you for coming out and telling people the truth. I mean, that's what we're here for. It's the truth. And if this stuff is happening, you're very well known. Your word is gold with a lot of people. And when you come out and say, listen, Sasquatch disappeared in front of me. It was sitting there 20 feet in front of me. You're not lying. You're telling them, look at I got the hair sticking up on when I talk about this way. And that's important, and that's awareness. And this stuff is really happening out there. So I applaud you for that. I applaud you for stepping up, and because not a lot of people will. And hopefully we can all get together and get some answers. I have people, if you need to talk to, that have been doing this for a long time and have had many experiences, and I can hook you up with a couple individuals that might help you get a little more educated on what's going on and not be so much, because it's frightening. It is. It's frightening when it first happens, and We'll get together and we'll talk after the show again. So, all right, we're going to take a few questions and then we're going to let Eric get on with his night. We're already over an hour. The Squatch Father asks, Mr. Alfred Santoriga asks, what did you think that green light was while you were up in the tree?
Man, I wish I knew. I wish I had more time because I think it was there longer than what I seen it. I just didn't. The EMF was going off, and I was looking at that, and I was just kind of, even though, like I said, I couldn't see anything around me, I was just kind of looking around. And I looked up, and there it was. And I wish I'd seen it appear. I don't know what it was. And like I said, it didn't shoot off. It just closed. That's actually the word I should use. It just closed. The light just closed. So I have no clue. No clue. Now can I contribute that light to why my EMF was going off? I mean, what else is there, you know?
Like a TV set turning off.
Yeah.
Okay, PJ Arkansas. Hey, you're back. I didn't know if you were back yet. I was going to call you today, but I guess you must be back. I hope you had a good time on your little vacation there. Has you ever? Here we go. Has he ever smelled anything?
Yeah, I have multiple times. I've gotten the pungent, just nasty. You want to vomit. I've gotten the sweet, very honeysuckle-like scent. There's I could go down my theory on the rotten smell. I do have a theory on that I am trying to work on this year. But I mean that's for another time. But yeah, I have. I've smelled different things, and once again, with interaction, what I consider to be interaction with this subject. Yes.
Yeah, we're experiencing radio frequency waves while we're having stones thrown at us that are. We had a satellite communication guy reach out to us and tell us if we were in a Faraday box, we would be getting cooked with radiation.
Oh wow!
The levels we were experiencing while having stones thrown at us in the Green Swamp in Florida and here in Connecticut. It's we'll talk about that too when we get together because RF is another thing to watch while we're out there. We're going to start recording everything now, EMF, RF, everything we can. Now, this is a really good question right here. Do you think they might have put you to sleep while you were in the tree themselves? And do you think there was time loss?
I've had time loss. Kane and I both have spoken about this in the past. There was one time where I feel that I was hit with something from them. It took me to my knees. I made my way out of the area. I circled back around. Kane made me circle back around and go back through the area. The second time I went through, he was behind me. The second time, I hit the ground face first. I had to literally crawl out of the area. I had stuff coming out of almost every orifice of my body. He was down. We get back to the house. We did not speak to each other on the way home. Not one word was spoken. I'm going through audio. I'm going through video. Through the following week, I shoot a clip out to him. I said, "Hey, when did we go here?" And we know this area. We're very familiar with this area. I said, "When did we go here?" He was like, "What is this?" And I said, "This was from last weekend. When did we go to this area?" We had lost an hour. We had lost an hour of time that neither one of us can get back. Neither one of us have any recollection whatsoever to it at all. I'm sorry, what was the other part of the question?
You had the time loss, and did you think they put you to sleep while you were in the chair that night?
I thought about that afterwards because prior to that, it wasn't like old timers and just gone. You know, prior to that, I was wide awake. I was fine. Everything was fine, and then I opened up my eyes. So I did think about that, like, you know, what it wasn't like I was tired and just kind of nodded off. It was one of those where I'm there, and then I'm kind of just opening up my eyes, and my EMF is going off. So I have thought about that. I don't know, but I have thought about it.
Have you ever felt that you were in a different place while you're out there? Like things change. I've been in the swamp before at 95 degrees and mosquitoes and black flies biting you. They're like the worst things. And we're following prints. And we came on a trackway, and all of a sudden it was like there was no more humidity. It was like we went to a whole nother, and the guy that was with me is like, we're not in the same swamp anymore. And have you ever experienced that before?
So this one where we did a lot of our research at the beginning, there's one area now that Kane and I kind of talk about, and yes, so to your point, and this happened three different.
Well,
sorry,
that's okay.
3 different times where the temperature dropped in this one spot. There was a significant change in temperature. Can't explain it. Have no idea.
Crazy stuff goes on out there, that's for sure. Blue-Eyed Northern asks, have you ever tried following their patterning through the Farmer's Almanac or astronomy?
Kane is the one to talk about on that. Yes, we have, but I have followed Kane's lead on that. He has dove into that, and certain things that we have done through him and his research on that. We were able to figure out a couple things. So yeah, we have.
Okay. We're going to take 2 more questions, and then we're going to let Eric get on his way. Let's see if we can find 2 more. Come on, everybody. Yeah, scroll back up a little. I want to just say thank you so much. This has been a great interview. My last couple.
I loved it.
This last couple of few interviews I've done have been awesome, and this one was really awesome. So thank you so much. We all got to stay in touch. We're all in this together, and the stuff that's going on out there is just incredible, and we could all figure it out together. I believe, and we'll try and do it. So I don't know. I think that's it, my friend. I think that everybody's a great show. Thank you, Eric. Al says great
Thank
show.
you.
Be Kind says amazing. Thank you. So that's awesome. Mr. Where did he go? Steve Wolf says great partnership with you and Kane. Yeah, that's one of the best in the business. All right. So before you go, I got one last question. Who do you look up to the most when you started? Since you've been doing this, who do you think has made the most impressions on you as a person?
In this realm, I can't put it on one person. I really can't. It's a multitude. It's several people that Kane and I have put ourselves in contact with, and there is a core group, and that core group are the people that I look up to, and they know who they are. But my idol in this, and biased or whatever, is Kane. Kane is my idol. The stuff that man does, and his thought process on digging in when it comes to, just learning and driving. He's 100%. He's at the very top.
Right. And I have to agree with you there, and I agree with your first answer too. It's a team effort. It's everybody. There's not one person I don't think I could look up to either. It's a community that you put around you and the people you trust, and that's what will bring us to the truth. So I want to thank you so much for being part of tonight, and we're definitely would love to have you back later on down the line, and we'll compare notes again, and We'll talk about how everything keeps on getting stranger and stranger in the forest.
Right on. Well, thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate it, man. I really do. Thank you.
Well, hang out backstage for a little bit. I'll be right there. I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Appalachian Bigfoot Explorer himself, Mr. Eric Tipton.
Peace.
All right. Another great show was had tonight. I want to say thank you for everybody keeping it cool in the chat. Am I in focus here? Ooh, I don't know if I'm in focus. But thanks for keeping it cool in the chat. And remember, if you guys know who Camping with Bigfoot is, they're the winners of the book and the mug. Francesca, I'll get your mug out to you. I forgot totally all about it, and I'm going to get that in the mail in the next couple days. So you know what happens from here. As our friend Larry says, get in the woods, people.